city in Michigan. It is the most diverse city in Michigan. It is, they say, the most walkable city in Michigan. Now we can say it's one of the safest cities in Michigan. And there was an article recently written that it's the city with the fastest growth in population and businesses in the state of Michigan. When I took the office in 2021, the city was at risk of falling under emergency management for probably the fourth time in the past 15 years, because there was a huge deficit, multi-millions dollars deficit. Within 1 year, this year we have multi-million dollars in surplus for the first time in 2 decades. So the city fell under emergency management under the previous administration 2 times. And every time the emergency manager will come from the state, they will sell the city properties, balance the budget, and leave. And then within 1 year, it will fall into deficit again because the revenue is not sustainable. This is the only time we have a consulting financial company that came. When I took the office, they gave me a lecture and they said, you have 2 years, you have general funds to cover for the next 2 years, and then this ship will sink and you will fall under emergency management again, and maybe Detroit will annexate this city. And then they came a year later and we had a surplus. And I asked them, what happened? Your expectations are wrong. They said, I don't know what you did, but it seems like you have surplus from now until 2028. And of course, it will continue because we are doing great. Let's talk about one example. The income tax between 2003 and 2021 stayed almost the same. Within 1 year, it increased by 120%, more than double. So I don't know what was going on, but we are moving in the right direction. And so the city is flourishing, and we are very proud to accomplish that under our leadership for the first time. It is not an individual accomplishment, it is a teamwork. We have some of our city officials here, Councilman Khalil Rifai, Councilman Tشاوري, and with the support of the community as well, we are moving in the right direction. So this city has, they say, a touch of Europe. In the past, they used to just say a touch of Europe. But now we can say a touch of Europe, the flavor of Southeast Asia, the taste of the Middle East, and the beauty of Africa and Latin America. And you have the whole world in a small, few square miles. So it became one of the safest cities in the area. The crime rate has dropped significantly in the past few years with the change of the demographics. And you can always say wherever you buy a mosque, people will move around that mosque, the area will become very safe, but the prices of houses will increase significantly as well. So this is what's happening here in this area. This is, I would say, one of the accomplishments and one of the effects of the immigrants' influx to the area. They are very productive people, and we are very proud that we took this city to a higher level, and we are moving forward. So why are we here today? We are not here to build a coalition against anyone. We are not here to plan for a military coup against anyone. And of course, I'm wearing a Republican tie. I didn't know that, but it was my wife's choice today. So that's too early to say that, but we are here to strengthen our unity and focus on what unites us. Like Bernadette keeps saying, we focus on what unites us and rise above what is trying to divide us. So we have so much in common, and we are here to open a new page, open new channels of communication, because with communication you can solve so many problems. We can learn about each other, we can educate ourselves about each other, and we can focus on things that will strengthen our unity and help us to protect our rights and freedoms, because we're not here to just live in peace only, while others can restrict our rights and freedoms, and we are just watching. We need to protect our rights and freedoms, just like Benjamin Franklin said, those who give up their liberty for a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. So we have to fight hard for our rights. We have to fight for the future of our kids. We have to make sure that we decide how to raise our children, not others. And so it was a good opportunity that we met the general a couple of months ago. It was me and my friend Adam Al-Harbi. We went to an event in Sterling Heights. And then after that, we kept in touch. And this is the fruit of our communication. He decided to visit our city, and we expect more visits and stronger relationships between us. And the more we get to know about each other, the more united we get. So we will hear from the general, but before that, I would like to invite the one who made this event possible, Ms. Qiyaadat Smith, who is the ethnic vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party. She would like to say a few words. She has been working diligently to build bridges amongst all people. Bernadette goes into communities to motivate, educate, and demonstrate the message of unity to help liberate many across the state. She often say it is time for us to focus on what unites us and rise above what's trying to divide us. She has hosted over a dozen unity rallies, including Detroit and Dearborn. She has joined us all here today so that we may come together to take ground toward the truth. Join me, please, in welcoming Ms. Qiyaadat Smith.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor and it's a privilege to be with all of you all today. As Dr. Amin said, we must focus on those things, that unites us, and rise above those things that divide us. I do believe this is a history maker today, and we're going to give our God all the glory and honor, right, for this meeting tonight. So I won't be before you long, but I want to know we want to continue to build bridges to walk in unity across the state of Michigan, not only the state of Michigan, the United States of America. Would you all like to see that? Because the values that we stand for, we don't want to see our children mutilated. We don't want to see the things that the left is trying to put on all of us. Is that not correct? So as we join forces together with the humanity issues, I believe we can take down what the enemy is trying to do to all of us. So I'm going to turn it over back over to Dr. Lee. And thank you again for allowing us to come.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Qiyaadat. So, as I always say, there are three things we cannot bargain about at any time or at any place: freedom, family, and faith, the three F's. So we share those things with our guests here: family values, respecting faith, and of course the freedom, not only our freedom, but we will defend others as well. So now I would hand the mic to General Flynn. He would say a few remarks. He can take all the time he wants. And then if any of the guests would like to speak, he's welcome as well. And then we'll receive some questions from you. You can always just maybe raise your hand and I'll pick people in order. And please, we are here in a friendly meeting. I don't expect any aggression in asking the questions. We have to be respectful to our guests, and feel free, we are transparent. Feel free to ask anything you want in a nice, respectful way. And now I'll hand the mic to the General. Thanks so much.
I'm going to step down. So first, I just want to say thank you for opening up your center here and allowing me to come in here, and really just to have great respect for what I have seen in your community, and I think what your mayor just talked about with what is happening in Hamtramck. You know, it's these kinds of interactions, and it's really not a guy like me coming in here. It's really what you're doing for your community. And when I say your community, it's the communities that are flourishing around the country right now by people who are dedicated to their families primarily. I think that the most unifying thing for me is family. I mean, you know, we have our faith and we have our freedom, but I think we sort of live and breathe for our families. I think that we really do. You can't be here unless you were part of a family. You cannot leave here unless you have a family, right? You can't leave this earth unless you have a family. So a couple of things before I make some remarks and then open it up for any questions, anything. First, I'd like to just introduce a couple of people that are here with me. Victor, if you just raise your hand, Victor, and Alfie right here. Those are two gentlemen that I have gotten to know over the past few years. Both of them literally, grew up dirt poor and are both very, very successful businessmen in their own communities down in Florida. And they're terrific people and they're terrific friends who have really believe in what the mayor was just talking about. They really believe in this country and really believe in what is happening in this country and the direction that this country is heading. And I will spend a few minutes talking about some of what I believe is happening in this country. And another great friend of mine is Tom Renz here. And just raise your hand right here, this gentleman right here. And Tom is a lawyer who he does a lot of work pro bono. Any other lawyers in here? Well, Tom, they want to admit it? Yeah. So, but Tom does a lot of work he does a lot of work for our military. He does a lot of work for our veterans. He does a lot of work for doctors who have been fired from their hospitals. I mean, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny's one that he's helping out right now over in Ohio, and just other cases. I mean, Tom is a fighter for all the things that we just heard from the mayor. He's a fighter for our freedom, our faith, and our families, and our ability to be able to move forward. And that's really what this is about. And then a little bit on me. So I'm one of 9. I have 9 brothers and sisters. So maybe some of you have large families or you come from large families. Both my parents are deceased. Both my parents died. My father died almost 25 years ago now, and my mother died just a few years ago. And my father and my mother, we were born in 1923. My father fought in World War II. And then he fought again in the Korean War. So I have a long history of military service in my family. Both of my grandfathers, they both fought in World War I. And one of my grandfathers also fought in World War II. So just for probably the better part of, 100, maybe 125 years in my family has been military service. And that's sort of where we come from. I still have, one of my brothers is still serving, and he's serving today out in the Pacific. He's a 4-star, so I retired as a 3-star. So my younger brother outranks me for anybody serve in the military, any service. So I have a retired or a brother who's still serving in the military. and he has about 150,000, primarily men, but about 150,000 men that work under his command. So he's got a gigantic command. He's in charge of all Army forces, so all the United States Army forces in the Pacific. So that means those that are in Korea, those that are in Japan, those that are in Indonesia, those that are in Australia, and he's a terrific guy. And then I have 3 other brothers and 4 sisters, and for the most part they're all still living today. And we stayed very, very close as a family, very close as a family. I mean, my mother and father were tough people. They're very tough. My father was. We were all working from the time that I can remember. You're out the door, 7, 8 years old. Okay, you do that to your child today. Maybe some of you still do that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And for many of you, and I know some of you, because as I looked at some of the bios and some of the backgrounds of some of those who are here today, some of you were not born here, right? And I actually think that that's even more special. It's more special because you came here for a reason, right? And I always look for those people that are first generation, or they came here from another country. And when we think about the history of the United States and the very beginning of this country, as the mayor was just quoting Ben Franklin, those were people that left another country to come here, principally to find something that they weren't getting back at wherever they came from. And in this case, it was Great Britain or it was Europe, right? And in many cases these days, people are coming from all over the world to come to this country. And when I look at what's happening to this country, one of the things that really struck me, and this is really why with the mayor, it was really only a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't even a couple of months ago. A couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting that Bernadette set up with a whole bunch of pastors and other people from generally this community, and outside this area. But what really impressed me was that the meeting was over. We spent, 3 or 4 hours. It was probably 9:30, almost 10 o'clock at night. And we were on the stage. And we were taking some photos, and everybody was saying goodbye, good night. And here comes the mayor. And you were with him. And the mayor comes up walking in. He could have gone home. He came from, I guess, a meeting of the town, of the city. And he could have gone home that night. He could have left and just said, these guys, But he didn't. He showed up. And he showed up and I could tell that he was he was hustling to be there, right? We're talking about football, right? He was hustling to be there, right? And it was just so impressive to me. And as I looked at him, I have a son that's not much younger. In fact, he's a year younger than the mayor. The mayor's, I think, you're 42. Where's the mayor? Is he behind me? Yeah, 42, right? He's a young guy. So, this is the future, okay? And there's others in here that represent the future. And some of you are younger, some of you might be my age, Maybe as I look around, maybe you're not my age. I'm 64. I'm 64 years old. And when I look at the mayor, and I was just so incredibly impressed by it, not the fact that he's the mayor, but the fact that he's a 42-year-old young man who, and I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and certain things that come across to me when I meet somebody is their character, the type of person that they are. And I saw something in this young man, and I said, wow, this guy's really sharp. He's a leader, right? He's a leader. And he's the type of person that he really is thinking, not just locally about what Hamtramck needs. He's also got just in the conversation that we were having, he also has a strategic view of what is going on in the country. Okay? Now, we can get into, and maybe you have questions about some of this stuff, but you know, when I was growing up and I was going through, you know, all my years in the military, and I always tell people this because I think it's important that you know, like, so I was like politically, I was a Democrat. So I was a registered Democrat. So you probably wouldn't know that. I mean, some of you may not even care about that. But, you know, like when we talk about politics, to me, politics doesn't matter. Politics doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a conservative, a liberal. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is whether you believe in this country and whether you are willing to do whatever it is required for this country to take care of primarily your faith and your families, okay? Because the one thing that's interesting, you know, when you talk about faith, they can take your freedom. So your freedom can be taken from you. And maybe some of you have been in that situation where your freedom's been taken from you. But they can never take your faith. They can never take your faith. They can lock you to the ground. They can lock you in chains to a wall. And you know what you can continue to do? You can continue to pray. You can continue to have your faith. That's the power of faith. That's the power of who we are as Americans. So we can practice that faith even in the silence of ourselves, right? In being very quiet in those quiet times when you know that there's a real struggle ahead. You know, you're in the middle of a political fight, or you're in the middle of some family problem that you have, or you go through some ugly situation, or you lose a child, right? Or you lose a sibling, or you lose a parent. And so what do? We offer a prayer, right? Sometimes you do that silently. And to me, that's the power of where I think our country needs to be going. And I think when Bernadette talks about unifying this country, you know, we got to find these things that unify us. One of the other things that I saw is in what is going on around the country is what they're doing with children. And I always tell people, you know, there's a lot of red lines that we give. In the military, there's a lot, you know, we have red line for this, red line for that. You know, a red line, meaning a line that somebody says, you know, you crossed that line, and I'm gonna punch you in the nose, right? For me, I'm one of these people that's very open-minded and very flexible in my thinking. Very open-minded and very flexible. Except when it comes to children. When it comes to children, I'm not. And what I see happening to our children in this country to create a culture of something that is unrecognizable to any faith, right? To any faith. It's unrecognizable when they're talking about what they are going to allow children to do without a parent giving them permission, right? I mean, I know many of you, probably all of you, have children, or you have families. You have nieces and nephews. You have extended families. This is a beautiful community of extended families, particularly in the Muslim community. Huge, huge extended families that you take care of each other. And you look at these children, and you say to yourself when you're going to go off to some school, right? And that's one of the other things that you should talk about too in Hamtramck is their schools and how's the education system going, right? Because that's a very important part of what we provide in this country. And so for all of us, this idea about what we're seeing happening to children, and to me that's something that is that's a red line. That's one of these red lines. You know, if people are going to go after a child like that, and when the government is starting to impose themselves on what a parent can do or not do, or decide or not decide for a child, especially when the parent is taking care of those children, that's a red line for me. That's a big red line for me. And I think that what we're seeing more and more, we're going to see more and more, is our government and our country is going to continue to use this culture to change the culture of how our children think and how they act. This is a big, big deal. And so when you think about as whatever, you know, ideology you're looking at, and you say, okay, I mean, that's why we have an age. We have an age in this country where we define what an adult is, right? And that age is 18 years old, right? It's 18 years old. If you're 18 years old, you gotta sign up for the selective service, and you could get drafted to go off to war, right? That's an adult. Beneath that is not an adult. It's not an adult. It's a child. And here we define that. We have it by law. It's stated. They don't let kids that are not adults go and do a lot of things, right? You can't vote, right? You can vote when you're 18, but you can't vote when you're 17. Simple things like that. But when I was just traveling around out west, I was in Arizona and California and Nevada, and I'm talking to these parents, and these parents are telling me that they're giving these kids hormone blockers. Have you ever heard stuff like that? Hormone blockers in like elementary school. In elementary school. And I'm starting to think, geez, how did the United States of America ever get here? How did we ever get here? Right? How do we get to this place where you can't show during a school board hearing, so you go to these school board hearings and you can't show the books, right, to the school board. You can't show them the books, or the TV cameras. They don't want to show what the books are showing because it's such pornography. Yet this is what we're teaching to our children. And I'm like saying to myself, this is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican. It's not a political issue. It's become a political issue. To me, this is a family issue. And so for the United States of America, as a family, at times, struggling family, we're struggling right now. And at times, a family that doesn't always get along. At times, it's a family that doesn't understand each other because we don't totally understand each other's faith. We don't understand each other's culture. But that's the beauty of this country, too, is to make sure that we reach out and we talk to each other and we get to know each other and understand what the culture is, right? I mean, it's so important what is happening. And as I am so honored, I'm honored to be able to just talk to this group because I know that you represent a body of leaders, not just from Hamtramck, but also from around this wider community. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. I don't know if you realize the opportunity that you have to move not just the state of Michigan forward, but the country forward. When you begin to think about the demographics, as the mayor was talking about, and you begin to think about the demographics and I guess the word would be like propensity, but the way that you get involved in your community. Okay, you get involved in your community. When I look around at the rest of the country, and I've been all over this country, and I look at how some parts, and I don't care whether it's white, black, red, doesn't matter what color, doesn't matter. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter what the faith is. And when I look around and I see some communities that are thriving, and I say, why are they thriving? They're thriving because they have really strong leadership. That's a big, big deal. And they're thriving because they have great community involvement. Great community involvement. And I can tell you just by introducing just these two gentlemen, as well as myself in our local communities, we are working our tails off. This is in Florida. We're working our tails off in Florida to do things in Florida in our local communities. And it's not easy. It's not easy because it takes somebody at the top, in this case a mayor, to demonstrate some leadership and to step out there and say, as a young man, and say, I'm going to get involved. Instead, you got businessmen in here. You got people who know how to run a business. He's just talked about some of how the business community is thriving here. Okay? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to not just take a city like Hamtramck, but you're also trying to take a state like Michigan and expanding out. Okay? Your opportunity to do that is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It's not going to happen today. And it won't happen if we continue down this path where we're dealing with people that they don't have the idea of freedom and faith and family like you have or like I have. They don't. When if I go to the 60,000 foot level with you and start talking about sort of the forces that are against us, they're very real. They're very, very real. And they will crush you, they will crush me, and they will come down and they will say, well, this is how you are going to live. They already talk about this stuff. Tom and I, we do a thing every week, every single week, where we talk to, in some cases, millions of people on these podcasts that we have. There are real people looking to change the face of this country, okay, and change the nature of our country. And so, if it takes anything, it takes one voice. One voice, that's all it takes. Just one person. Just one person. And I'll stop here in a second, but when the mayor came up those stairs and we were in this place, and I'm looking and he introduced himself and we were talking for a second, I'm looking at this man and I'm saying, man, this is the guy that really gets it. He really understands. And I'm not up here, I'm not being paid by the mayor to say all these nice things about him. I'm saying it because I know when I meet somebody, I can tell in about 5 minutes, some cases 5 seconds, if they're worth a damn. Okay? Just by their character, by their demeanor, by how they hold themselves, by how respectful they are, right? And by their first few words, how they carry themselves in their, with whoever. Nobody was around, really. Nobody was around, so he wasn't trying to impress anybody. So I'm using him as an example because there's many, many examples like him. Young people. But it's going to take old guys, right? With all due respect, all of us, right? It's us. It's the older generation that have to pull on you. They have to pull on the youth that's out there. But the only way that we can pull on the youth that's out there is by showing them some respect, right? And teaching them what it means, right, to be a strong family man. Teaching them what it means to be a good citizen of your town or your city or your state or your country. Teaching them what it means to have a strong faith. And if we don't do that, we're going to lose this country. And part of why I'm here is to let you know that we're this close to what the mayor talked about that Ben Franklin said. We're this close to having something that is not recognizable as the United States of America anymore. And that has nothing to do with the demographics. It has everything to do with the rule of law. It has everything to do with something called the Constitution that gives us the opportunity to be in a beautiful center like this and be able to have a conversation like we're having tonight. So, with great respect and with great humility, I am super, just so happy to be here with you all tonight and to be able to just share a few words and then maybe just answer a few questions that you might have. And I don't know how you want to do that, Mayor, but from anybody, and questions about anything at all.
I would like to welcome you to our beautiful city. We'd love to have you here. I have some questions and concerns since you represent the Republican Party. I will start with saying shared interests are constructed in and through the political discourse. We all know that the Republican candidates and the media that stands for the GOP have been bashing Muslims for decades. With all respect, it's still hard to believe that things will get reversed and the GOP will not turn on us in the future and form an alliance with the other side. In order for us to be allies, we will need to undergo confidence-building measures to increase trust, understanding, and cooperation. As you have mentioned, our religious and traditional family values are at risk. Our freedom has recently been threatened and violated. My question is, what are we going to do about this? Does the Republican Party have a strategy or a plan in which our family values and children are protected?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that needs to be done is I think there has to be a very strong statement that touches on the end of your question. A very strong statement about regardless of ethnicity, regardless of culture, regardless of background, there has to be a very strong statement about family values from the Republican Party. I mean, to the point where it's like nobody misunderstands what's being said. There has to be a really, really strong statement about family values. I think that the Republican Party, I'm not a big fan of the Republican Party, so just take that for what it's worth. I don't know how many Republicans are in here, but I'm just not a fan of the party. What I am a fan of is I'm a fan of our Constitution and I'm a fan of our country. So, as a guy who is a father and a grandfather, right now, I stand strongly on family values. And I would tell you that I stand here today because my father and my mother taught me what family meant. And it didn't mean, go have a nice day. It meant go treat others like you like to be treated, never stop learning, and go work. Go earn, a good day's wages, so to speak. So I think that the Republican Party, the leadership, those that are in like Washington D.C., they're going to say, "Oh, we're all for family values." I think that that's a lot of talk. So I think that what has got to be done, because I can't disconnect family values from my faith, and I don't think you can either. In fact, I know you can't. You cannot disconnect. If you're a faith-based person, you can't say, well, my faith is over here and my family values are over here. It's the same thing to me. And I think it's probably the same thing to you and to anybody else in this room. So I think that we cannot pretend, like it's one thing. I really think that we have to be very, very strong in our language and in our actions. And, somebody in here, it had to do with, who's the American PAC? Yeah, maybe it was with you guys. When I was looking at some of the folks that were going to be in here, this is just my own cursory study. Somebody had an issue with bringing a family member over from Yemen. Is that right? A daughter or something, or a sister maybe, I forget. But somebody had an issue, and there was statements made about, we're not going to allow Muslims into the country for whatever reason. And I don't know all the details, but I know that there was some issue about that. That's the kind of thing where we've got to use just common sense. I mean, look at what we're allowed. We're up to 170 countries right now we know of that have come into the southern border of the United States. Yet I'm not going to allow somebody's, niece or relative to come in. I have a family here in Hamtramck, and so they have a place to live, and I want to bring them in. And I think that there was one issue. I don't know if the person's here, but one issue where somebody was not allowed to do that. And I don't know why. I don't know what the whole issue was, but to me, there has to be a very, very strong stand on family values that are faith-based as well. There's got to be a connection. There's got to be a connection. You can't have two separate things. So if it were up to me, and they don't always listen to what I say, But if it were up to me, that would be my answer. And then like my father taught me. My father taught me to look at every single person as an individual. Don't make a judgment about all these people in this room, right? Because they're Muslim. You look at every single person, and you judge that person. You judge this person for what their actions are, who they are, what they represent. Everybody's different. The good thing about God is God made us all different. So we can't judge a group. I can't say I'm going to judge all blacks, right? Or I'm going to judge all Hispanics or all Irish, right? Or Muslims because of the act of one. Okay? And I think that we tend to lose sight of that the higher you go, right? So you got to be, because you're going to go into other parts of leadership roles in your life. It's like, the best teams that I've ever been on have been teams that have been made up of really diverse bodies of people. Everybody brings a little bit of a talent, right? It's the same way with families. Same way with families. So I think there's got to be a really strong statement made about that. But don't let anybody disconnect it from your faith. Okay? Yes, sir.
Yeah, good evening, and I'd like to say again, it's an honor and privilege for you to be, for us that you're here. Thank you very much for coming, number one. I wanted to make, if it's okay, just a quick comment and then a question. The comment is, and I think all of you guys touched upon it, when you look at the 60,000 foot level, on this world, in this earth, we as Muslims and people of faith, it's hard for me as a person to imagine that we made out of protons, electrons, and neutrons, and all of a sudden a living thing just emerged out of nowhere. So we believe very fervently that there is a divine creator. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that is our strongest foundation with each other, is believing in a divine creator. And the forces that are out there in the media, in the head of the companies and this and that, they don't have that belief, or they just don't believe. They believe in absolute materialism, I guess. So I think it's very important for us to understand that is what binds us together. Another thing I want to mention, we're Muslims and there's many Christians here, and I don't know if you guys know this, as my days in college, I didn't know anything about Christianity, I didn't know anything about Islam, but it's actually about talking to people and understanding. And one of the things in Islam, maybe many Christians don't understand, is that the most important woman on the face of this earth is Mary, the mother of Jesus. We hold her in such high regard, and that is part of our faith, part of our religion. So that is something very important. Many Christians probably they don't understand that. So sorry for the long comment. My question, I've been living here for 40 years, and I have never seen the United States of America move at such a rapid pace as it has been in these last, I would say maybe 10 years. I have never seen this. It's exponentially quick. And you, with your experience and expertise, my question is, do you have an idea of what was the tipping point? How did we get to this point? Like I said, I value your experience and your expertise, so I'm interested to find out what you think, why or what is causing this rapid change that we're living in.
Yeah, a rapid decline.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. When you study the rise and fall of nation states, okay? So Mesopotamia, Byzantine, Persian Empire, Ottoman Empire, British Empire, Roman Empire, Carthaginian Empire, Mesopotamian Empire. They're gone. So the fact of life, the fact of human history is that nation states rise and fall. It's a fact. I joke sometimes about, have you ever met anybody from the Byzantine Empire? And the answer is no, because it's the oldest empire in the history of the world. At least that's what we believe. It's what we've been able to archaeologically dig. So when you start to study what I call indications and warnings of the decline of nation states, which I have studied, and it's something. It's a part of my education and part of my passion, because I love this country. And as I look at the decline of what we're facing, and what you're talking about, this rapidity, this speed, that you can feel it, right? And it's not you're not the only one. So when you look at the indicators, like the Athenian Empire, right, in Greece, Athens, when it fell apart very quickly. And typically, some won't go as fast as Athens. Roman Empire took a little bit longer. British Empire actually collapsed pretty quick. Remember there's a phrase, the sun never set on the British Empire, right? Because they had colonized the entire world. But then when it collapsed very, very quickly. The Athenian Empire, that happened to the Athenian Empire too. And they were in massive, massive debt. Okay, so they were the richest empire in the history of the world at the time that they existed. They were way, way overextended in their military. So their military was all over the empire at that time, even more than the Roman Empire. And they had they were a democracy. Okay, they were a democracy. They had internal strife in their federal government, right? They're at their high level government that they had. So they had great strife. And you could say, if there was polling being done then, the people of Athens and certainly the empire no longer trusted what Athens was supposed to do, which was supposed to protect the citizens and take care of the citizens of the Athenian Empire. They stopped doing that. And once it declined like overnight. And it broke up into a bunch of smaller families, actually. There was, I think, the number I made, don't hold me to the number, it was somewhere between 15 and 18 families that made up the big landowners, right? And the big wealthy class. And they broke apart. And the Athenian Empire fell apart. Have any of you ever been to Greece and seen like the Acropolis? It's like driving from where we drove from, and I'm seeing all these buildings, and every time I come through, I never want to go on the highways, because on the highways you see the nice billboards and everything's fine. I like to go back into the side streets, because I want to get a feel for how are people living, right? And it's not a pretty picture driving from where we drove. That's just here, but I could say that for a lot of places I've been. And so the decline comes quickly. It comes quickly because people, and don't take this wrong, but this is like, and I will point at my generation, right? We've been apathetic and we've been lazy citizens. Okay, America has created this wealth, incredible wealth. We have great people doing great things, but we've also been apathetic and lazy. Your kids, and I'll tell you, because I know it's with my kids too, right? Try to get them off to church, or try to get them off to the mosque. Get them dressed and get them going, right? Teach them to pray, right? To get a kid to do that these days, because they're all in these phones and on these laptops and all this stuff is crazy. But if we don't stick and teach, and now's the time to do it. I actually think that we have some oxygen that's still available to the United States of America. And I think that oxygen, from my standpoint, is in leadership. Leadership that recognizes exactly what is happening to this country, sees the warning signs, and knows where to say stop, or back to your point, to say this is where I'm going to take a stand. Okay? Because when I look around at all these big politicians and all these people, I'm saying to myself, man, these people, they're all about themselves. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. They're taking and they're lining their pockets and they're stuffing. You know, you know this. Don't kid yourself, and don't allow yourself to fall into that trap for any of the politicians. Anybody? I'm just saying, like, what we need is a level of honesty, and we need a level of leadership, because it's not that any of us are perfect, but you got to step up there and say, look, I'm willing to take one for the team, right? I'm willing to stand and put myself out in front of everything, because I can see what you see, because you can see it. The fact that you asked that question, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And many, many people feel the same way. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi, my name is Ahmed Ghanem. I'm the co-founder of Metro Detroit Political Action Network. It's a grassroots network in Detroit here. And I have a two-part question. The first part is from being an American Muslim, and the other part of just being part of Michigan. The first part of being an American Muslim, you wanted us to be honest, and I want to be honest with you. And I was invited to this meeting 2 days ago, so I didn't have time to actually do any research, but I didn't need to do any research because I actually organized some of the protests against some of your comments in the past. Mm-hmm. You basically said before that all cultures are not morally equivalent, and you were talking about Muslims. You supported vetting of Muslims coming to the United States, and now you're talking about people coming in. I don't know, have you changed your mind or what? You said before that Islam is a cancer, and on one of your interviews in Fox, that was in April 2015, you said you have been at war with Islam for the last decade. So all the things that you've said in the past, and as an American Muslim, I'm mature enough to understand that when we're looking to build a coalition, we're not, I don't expect you to change how you view Islam or you view Muslims. And working in a coalition is different than loving each other, because this is not a romantic relationship, it's a political coalition we're forming here. But my question is, and you're talking about you are not part of the GOP, but part of the conservative movement, which is great. What systemic changes that the conservative movement are doing to change all this past? Because this is just part of the statements that made, and all the statements were part of systemic attacks on Muslims during Trump era. So what are the changes as a thinker for the conservative movement you think that the conservative people, including yourself, have to do in order to change this past, or order to let Muslims know that now there is a path forward for them to be part of this coalition group? This is the first part of the question. The second part, as part of someone who's involved in politics here in Michigan, we expected a red wave happening here in Michigan in past election, but the red wave did not happen. The GOP was defeated very badly. They lost everything. They lost all the chambers. They lost the governor. They lost all the races they were in. And the reason they lost everything, because of the influence of Trump. The influence of Trump inside the party is so huge that leads to elect people that do not get the votes of the public. They will get the votes inside the party, but they are not going to get the vote outside of the public. And that's why, as part of the Muslim group, I would not risk taking the votes of the Muslim community to a group that they cannot handle themselves and do not choose the right candidates to. Because if we give you if we break our alliance with the Democratic Party and give it to the GOP under the influence of Trump, and you do the same as you did in the last election, and you lose all the seats that you're competing for, we did not just lose the election, we even lost with the alliance that we have. So what measures that the Republican Party or the conservative movement is doing on local level like Michigan to make sure that the influence of Trump will not make the GOP lose the election as what happened in the last election? Thank you.
Okay, so let me get to the second question first. That one, I in Michigan, and I don't think that our election system, nor do I think that our election process is fair. I just don't think it's fair. And there's too much evidence, there's too much baggage over the last 2 or 3 decades, both sides, who have argued about the poor election system and process that we have. And when you can't, I mean, every single one of you gets audited every single year. Every one of you gets audited. I get audited every year. It's called the IRS when you turn in your taxes. But yet we're not allowed to dig in and audit our election system or process at all. And what happens is your governor, your attorney general, your secretary of state, they attack their opponents. It's not just in Michigan, this is all over the country. Even Republican governors, right? In places like Georgia or Arizona prior to the current governor. So, I mean, our election system, and it gets back to this gentleman's question. If we don't have a fair election system, and we don't, and I will leave here tonight, you can try, till the cows come home to convince me that we do in Michigan. I won't believe it, because I've been in too many, in detail looking at it. And I'm saying to myself, how do we ever allow ourselves to get here? And then when we ask the question about our outcome of our elections, okay, because I'm not in the camp that says blue wave, red wave. When I look at things, I'm like, you got too many things that were not right, and yet you're not allowed to go and check it. You can't go and check it. But believe me, when the government wants to check your finances, they're going to be digging into your finances, because that's what they do all the time. But when I, as a citizen, steps in and goes, hey, look, I want to audit the vote that happened in this county or that county. I want to look into these machines, or I want to look into this, whether the ballots were signed properly, right? I mean, there's so many things that we saw nationwide. And so that's my answer to that second part of your question, which I just don't buy that we have fair elections right now. That's not good. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that 2024 is going to be any better, because I don't know what the solution is for us to all stand up and go, look, if this is the guy, he should win a fair and square game, right? We were joking about the football team, right? I mean, if you play a tough football game and the other team beats you, and it was a fair outcome, and you're not griping about the referee, right? If you're griping about the referee and he made a bad call, it's like, well, it's unfair. Wait a second, you're making those kids feel like they're not worthy. We've made our country, 80% of the people in this country, 80% right now, don't trust the federal government. They don't trust the rule of law. They don't trust the attorney general. They don't trust our election system. 80% of our country. So that's my sentiment on elections, and that includes here. So you have to get involved. I use the phrase local action has a national impact. On your first question, you're right. You're right. I am, but I'm here. I'm here. So, my mother taught me to be a lifelong learner. Okay, and I did spend the better part of a decade, in fact, five straight years, saving the lives of thousands of Muslims from mostly Muslims who I don't think, because I met and spoke with a lot of them, because we captured a lot of them, who were very, very radicalized. And I'm thinking to myself, when I'm talking to these men, and I'm thinking, why are you doing this? You're educated. I have one example in the top of my head right now. University of Cairo, fully educated. And he's wearing a suicide vest. I'm thinking, how could you get to a place where you're not killing like U.S. soldiers? You're about to kill a bunch of young people. This is up in Mosul, Iraq. And thank God, we were able to get him before he did that. And we were able to get him where we were able to capture him alive. So we not only saved the people that he was, these are the kinds of, it's like, when you talk about post-traumatic stress, right? I mean, these are the moments that I'm thinking, and I'm saying to myself, how can that be? But, if you study war, and I'm Irish, and I go look at Northern Ireland, right? And I go look at the violence that Northern Ireland had. So, but I didn't fight in Northern Ireland. And a lot of Irish that blew up a lot of bombs and killed a lot of families, killed a lot of kids. My experience was that. And so as I look at it, and I'm thinking to myself, this is what I was up against. This is what I learned. This is what I faced. But I will tell you that I have as many men that are in here. I have this many men and more that are friends of mine, Muslim friends, that I respect, I've prayed with, been with their families, eaten food with them, been in their homes. And they're not out there trying to destroy. Okay, they're out there trying to lift. And they're out there, and for those that are going through my head right now, that are in this country, they're men that are smart businessmen. They're men that are involved in their communities. They're men that go to mosque every day. I mean, these are men that pray all the time. So when I look at it, I can delineate, I can separate what I believe, certain aspects, because it's like the Catholic religion, any religion. The word zealot. Does anybody know where the word zealot comes from? I mean, it comes from way back, right? It's biblical. It is literally biblical. So there's zealots everywhere. Now, from my perspective, am I a zealot? You're damn right I'm a zealot. I'm a zealot for this country. And so I will, and I still will do it. I still will do it. That I was willing to give my life up. And I say this to people, often, that you don't go and fight an enemy because you hate the enemy. You go and fight an enemy because you love something. You love your family, you love your country, right? And that's why you go and you love the guy on your right or the guy on your left. That's why we fight. So I can separate and I can learn. And that's why I'm here today. Yeah.
So thank you. Just to elaborate on this point, we are also part of the coalition to fight terrorism. Those people do not represent Islam. Those extremists that the general mentioned in Mosul, ISIS, or Al-Qaeda, anywhere, those are a small fraction of the Muslim, 1.8 billion Muslim around the world. So we in our countries, we fight them in our own countries, and they hurt Muslims as well. So yes, they misrepresent Islam, but they should not be, the legal representative of the Muslims. And I agree with the general that those extremists give a bad image about Islam. We should not generalize that image about all the Muslims. We are here in the United States, millions of people. You go to any university, any hospital, you'll see doctors, highly specialized, professors, everywhere from all the Muslim countries. And some of them escaped their countries because they did not find the opportunity that we have in this country. We always say great people, talented and smart people exist everywhere, but the opportunity for them to succeed does not exist everywhere. We have that opportunity in this country. So I think this part should be clear, and like we said, we are here to learn about each other. We will educate the general if there's any misunderstanding. We are here, that's why we asked for this meeting. We learn from our differences. If there's any misunderstanding, we are here. We have some sheikhs, imams, doctors, engineers, everybody is specialized in one area, and we can always, if there's any question for the general, we can address it today and we can focus on what unites us, right? We keep saying, and rise above what is trying to divide us. So thank you. Khalil and then Musa, okay?
Good evening. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It's an honor to have you all here, to see you again. First of all, thank you for your service. God bless you and your family for your patriotism. One thing that I want to highlight is a comment and a question about the last election. Despite the fact what my friend said, the Republican Party lost in every single major election, but what happened in Dearborn and probably in Hamtramck is slightly different from what happened across the state. 3 weeks prior to the general election last year, the problem of the sexually explicit books came to the surface, and the people in Dearborn start rising up. Within 3 weeks of that movement, the numbers changed dramatically. And if you are following these numbers with the election, back in 2018, Governor Whitmer won in Dearborn with an average of 88%. They voted for her in the precincts where Arab Muslim American, almost 95%. She got 88% of the votes. In the last election last year, the same people and the same governor who ran again, Whitmer against Dixon, but because of the sexually explicit books and the children stuff, that number dropped from 88% to 53% or 55%. So to correct that, we have a strong foundation in terms of the common issues that we all share. I see a lot of faces here, and I see a lot of people here. They are affiliated with the Democratic Party. I was a member of the Democratic Party in the past. But I can guarantee you, we all believe in family and faith. Okay, the problem that we are facing here and nearby cities is it comes down to the actual democratic leadership. Once we get elected officials from the Democratic Party, they will hammer you with laws and rules that will actually captivate you. You cannot do anything. So, and they use all the notion of fear tactics, intimidation. The Republican Party is against Muslims. The Republican Party will try to deport Muslims. They use that same fear and intimidation all the time to scare the actual voters not to vote for the Republican Party. But despite all that, the people went out and voted because they want to, by the end of the day, protect their children. They are against the woke ideology by all means. So you are here. Thank you for coming. We are trying to find ways how can we revive the American identity, faith, and family that bring us and unite us together and work as one unified force to educate as much as we can. One meeting will not do it. One gathering will not do it. It has to be a strategic plan that will bring us all together, very well connected, because we are fighting big people, as you mentioned, that trying to change the nature of living and the God's willing creation of human lives. Thank you.
Yeah. So, what you just highlighted was what I would call the power that you have that you don't realize. For you to go from 80% to 50%, or, I mean, the one thing that I do know, and this is something that I paid very close attention to, and in the world of voting, there's voters who are what they call high propensity voters, meaning that they go out and vote. Okay, and your community is a community of high propensity voters, meaning that you're going to go out and vote. And so if the Democrat, which again, I don't think that the Democrat Party exists anymore. I was a Democrat until 2 years ago. So I was a Democrat. So when I ran with President Trump in 2016, he narrowed it down to 4 people for vice president. In June of 2016, 4 people. Newt Gingrich, Mike Pence, Chris Christie, and General Flynn. of those 4, I was a Democrat. So again, it's like, because the Democrat Party doesn't exist. Now there'll be a label that says Democrat, but the people that have taken over the Democrat Party, they're moving us towards your question about decline. They're moving us toward the decline of what's called a democracy under a constitutional republic form of government. Okay? Now, you represent, and your statement was about power. And that's where, when we say in our Constitution, we the people, right? We the people are supposed to have the power. And not some governor, or not some attorney general, or not even some mayor, right? If you don't like the mayor, you're supposed to be able to vote him out. Somebody else steps in and goes, I can do a better job than him. And so you vote him out. What I want you to not forget is that power. Because this issue, if there's an issue in this country, and it's not because of Trump. Trump didn't cause drag queen, hour. Trump didn't, start. Hey, I served in the military for almost 35 years. And I can tell you, 1993, you were probably what, like 6, maybe 13. So back in 1993 is when we had Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Okay? Remember, don't ask, don't tell. That's a phrase, right? So I served in the military with gays and lesbian. We just didn't ask them. I know, it's like, that's your business, right? As long as when we were going to go to war, I needed to Velcro you to me, and I needed to trust you. So what I trust is I trust you. I trust you, I trust this community to protect your families. And I'm telling you, if we don't get rid of these people that are taking us down this road, this is a road towards decline. Okay, this is a road towards cultural decline. And the very first thing that you do, anybody that's ever run a business, even a small, relatively small business, but you've ever run a big business, one of the first things that you do, especially if you're going to take over, is you look at what's the culture of the organization. Are they upbeat? Are they winning? Is it a team that's got a bunch of winners on it, right? That's a culture. It's an attitude. And that's what I see. That's what you just said. You just said, our culture is we're not going to accept this. We're not going to accept this. But we didn't get the word out enough. Okay, because we only got to 50%, right? But what we want to do is, maybe the next time it's like, we're not having any of that, because you're right. They are going to shove this business of transgenderism, critical race theory, whatever else nonsense. The thing about the hormone blockers, to me, I was in a place not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, in California, where they're starting to talk about the governor wants to put hormone blockers in elementary schools and do so without parents' permission. You know what a hormone blocker does to a boy or to a girl? It changes their life. This is nuts. To me, it's like, it's not right.
Abuse.
Huh?
That's child abuse.
It is child abuse. It is child abuse, It is child abuse. And it's being done, that abuse is being done by somebody who is not the parent. So, God, if there was ever a unifying thing, it should be because it's not just about our children, it's about our future. Okay? Because the other point that you made is that you're right. In an hour or whatever, I'm going to walk out that door and I'm going to go back home. And guess what? It's up to you. It's not up to me what happens in this community. It's up to you. It's up to you what happens in this community. And you work it from the bottom up. One of the things that our Constitution did, and the vision of these great founders, was they gave us 3 things: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? And they did it in their arguments, and I've read these arguments. Okay? I've read the Federalist Papers. I've read their diaries. I've studied the history of this country. And when I read these, especially the letters from the founders back to their wives in most cases. And they're talking about how they started with the individual. The arguments that we had was what we were going to give to an individual. Not what rights we were going to give to Governor Whitmer or the federal government, not what the federal government was going to have. Because right now the federal government has way, way too much power. And the state governments have way too much power. I mean, they just do. So, power, because that's what you just addressed. You addressed the power that you have. You have power. And you are a group of high propensity voters, meaning that when you say, we're going to go out and vote, and we're going to vote for these issues, you go out and vote. You tell other groups in this country to go do that, and maybe 30% show up. Right? I mean, we have elections right now that nobody's even voting in them. 35% of people who can vote, vote. You know that the presidential elections, in a U.S. presidential election, we have only about 70% of the people in this country that can vote actually vote. So there's 30% of voters that they go, I ain't gonna go vote. That's not power. Okay, that's a way to lose this country. That's a way to allow, because I stood for almost 3.5 decades and fought. So everybody can have the right. Everybody that is a citizen has a right to vote. So, yes, sir, I will go right here maybe, and then we'll go jump back. Okay?
Great honor to meet you, General Flynn. I have a lot of respect for you and for all the great people that serve our country. So my question is, what is the Republican Party doing to address concerns of racism within the party? And also, has the party adopted a pro-immigration position given the fact that American family and conservative values are deteriorating within America and are in need of immigrants within the party, since it is the immigrants that hold strong to conservative and family values, such as those seen in Hamtramck and also around Hamtramck?
I mean, so the immigration system in this country is broken, right? I mean, how did we get to where so many people came into like Ellis Island? If you ever watched any of the documentaries they've done of Ellis Island and the people coming in at that time, they were able to bring them in, and they had a very effective system, and they did it for millions of people. A lot of my relatives, my great-grandfather, great-grandmother came in through Ellis Island, and they were basically processed through a certain way, and they had to follow a certain set of rules, right? And I know that there's some in this room that came from another country here and became and then naturalized as a citizen. Okay, so if you did that, more power to you, and that's a great thing. And you did it by following the rules and the rule of law that we have for immigration. Now, when somebody tells me it's taken me 8 years to become a U.S. citizen, which I've heard so many times, I'm like, why does it take 8 years to become a U.S. citizen? Why is our system so broken? And so, from my perspective, it's definitely not opening up the southern border and just saying, come on in. Okay? Now, I don't think anybody in here is collecting Social Security yet. Anybody collecting Social Security? Okay. So, all right, good for you. So the average paycheck for somebody who worked their whole life and is now collecting Social Security is $1,400 a month in this country. That's the average. Some people have a little bit more, some people have a little bit less, but the average is $1,400 for somebody who worked their rear ends off, raised families, supported a community, and did all these things, and they're making about $1,400 a month. If somebody crosses the border right now, you know how much they're getting on a monthly basis? They're getting $2,200. $2,200. And they're getting tickets to wherever they want to go. Detroit, Kansas City, Chicago, New York. And now you're starting to see, you guys probably see some of it here, maybe not in Hamtramck, but you start to see the mayor of New York, he's going down to Washington, D.C. to complain, right? A Democrat mayor going to complain to a Democrat president, and the Democrat president doesn't want to hear it. Doesn't even want to meet the guy. Okay? So, our immigration system, that's the right process. It needs to be, that's where we should be investing money. So if we're going to invest money, we should find out, okay, what are the ways to become a naturalized U.S. citizen properly, using the right rules, right? Following the law. Now, I'm not against migrant workers coming across the border in the south or the north to come in to do migrant work. We've been doing that for well over probably 150 years in this country, because we've been growing grapes and apples and cotton, a lot all out in the west and down south. And so migrant workers come over, they work, they get paid, and they go back home. And they're migrants. I'm not against that. That's actually a system that has worked for a long, long time. And then what happens is they, you use they're abusing the system now, but it's not the fault of those people. It's not the fault of those people that are coming across. It's the fault of these governments where they're coming from. And now we're up to almost 170 different countries. So you say to yourself, what is so bad about these other countries that their people are, because in many cases, they're throwing them out of their countries. They're throwing them out. We know of plane loads of people being brought into Quito, Ecuador, and sent through the Darien Gap in Panama and put on trains or trucks to come up through the southern border. We know about this. We know about whole prisons being released. Insane asylums being released. These aren't just made up things. So we've got to fix that. We've got to fix that. And it's not about not allowing people into this country. If you came into this country and you went through the right legal system, and you're going to work your tail off, and you're going to, maybe make $1,400 a month on Social Security after working for 25 or 30 years, and somebody's going to cross the border and they're going to give them a paycheck. And they're going to give them a place to live. Some of these people are living in really nice places in some of these cities. So, it's a lousy answer to your tough question. Okay, I gave you a lousy answer because it's a tough question. But the real answer is it has to be fixed. And it can't just, it's not just build a wall, right? It's fix the system. Now, if building a wall or putting more law enforcement, we have over 100,000, and I know it's happening up in Michigan. And I don't think it's here that bad where you're at. But this idea of fentanyl, everybody knows what fentanyl is, right? Over 100,000 killed by fentanyl. 100,000. We didn't lose that many in all the wars that I've been fighting in combined. Okay, and I was in many. Combined, we haven't lost that many. We're losing them right here on the streets. Killed in action. I call it killed in action because the drug cartels and supported by the Chinese government, is part of the problem. So we got to fix it. We can't just go, build a wall. That's a nice bumper sticker and that's a good political statement, and it gets a lot of people clapping. But it's got to be where you got to look internal. You got to say, okay, if we're going to have a Department of Homeland Security, and a Department of Immigration Services, this is where it's got to be fixed. And you bring those people in and you say, and not like I'm going to give you 4 years to think about it. You give them 30 days, and you say in 30 days I want you right here on this carpet or on this tile floor, and you tell me how you're going to make this problem better, how you're going to fix it. We haven't had that. We haven't had that. I'm not even sure, Trump would talk about stuff like that, but I'm not sure that it got fixed. Because it's a lot of BS, right? So, or maybe we put you in charge of it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, I'll just give you a really brief premise of who I am. I'm an American Dream story. I grew up dirt poor, one employee selling tomatoes on the side of the road, and I have a $1 billion a year company with 4,000 employees. It's an American Dream story, and that's why I fight for the American Dream. And I'm not fighting for my own riches, because I could lose everything I have, and I'm the happiest guy in the world. I don't attach myself to my money or what I've done. I've been blessed by God. But what I hear a lot of the statements here that seem like people that were maybe just looking into maybe possibly voting Republican or conservative, or maybe not at all, maybe totally from the Democrat side. That only thing I ask is, where do you get your news, right? Because the enemy, part of fixing the problem here is recognizing who the enemy is. And the enemy is Republicans and Democrats. I'm a registered Republican because in Florida, to vote Republican, which I think there's a few more Republicans, especially in Florida, that have done a good job. So I can't even vote for in the primary if I'm not. But I'd rather be an independent, because I despise most of the Republican Party. I think most of them are scumbags that are out for their own self-interest only. But when we look at what's happened here in the last few years under the leadership of the Democrats, who thinks that you're in better shape right now? With millions and millions of people coming across the border, with all these policies that we see that are coming in, and I believe that Biden is controlled by this globalist, and maybe some of you are I don't know where you get your news from, but if you're paying attention, there's a lot of pressure coming from big corporations, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and they have think tanks in DC. And as soon as they start taking you against Trump because of something he says against the Muslims, my answer to that is, we're all here in America, and we're all Americans. And yes, there's Muslims. There's hardly anybody here, right, that was born here on this, has generational from the soil going back 10, 12 generations. We're all immigrants. And it's, do you want to protect this, what we have? And we have to be vigilant in learning about the people that we elect, to make sure what their foundation is, what their integrity is. I got involved. General Flynn encouraged me three and a half years ago to get involved in local, as he says, local action has national impact. I got involved in my local community like I never got involved in anything else. I put it in front of my business, and we changed the culture of our whole county, in Collier County. And I didn't just go and say, oh, you're a Republican, I like you. I actually was voted in as state committee man, and the RAC, the Republican part of our community, were mostly people that I despised. I thought that they were doing a terrible job. They weren't even standing up for conservative values, but they were Republicans. So we actually changed that around. We got our own, in our own Republican Party, we got America First people. And America First is what we need right now. We need to think about us not as being united, but as being Americans. I came against the Black Lives Matter when it wasn't cool. At the very beginning when they were coming out, I made a huge stand. Not too many business people that have thousands of employees come out openly against Black Lives Matter. And I took a lot of help from it, but I knew that Black Lives Matter was not to unite our country, it was to divide it. At that time, many people were just listening to mainstream media. They didn't really understand. Now they do. I also took a big stand against COVID, because I knew COVID was a sham. I have 4,000 employees. We never social distance. We never masked, ever. I got 80-year-old women with gray hair, the media coming in and saying, oh, this place is a super spreader, it's got to be shut down, people are losing their lives. Guess what? 4,000 employees, not one person died. Because we ate healthy, we loved each other, we had ivermectin, we did the right thing. All I'm saying is we need to all get involved. General Flynn inspired me to get involved. You can do here what we did in Collier County by just getting involved. Use your local businesses. There's very good points that you have that you can do. Everyone in their right mind is against this child abuse that's happening in our schools, right? But what party is that coming from? And everyone's against the border being open, but what party is that coming from? And I'm not, believe me, I'm not painting the Republicans I was with if you want to look up something good, look up Clay Higgins. He's my favorite congressman from Louisiana. I was on the phone with him for an hour and a half yesterday. He's one of the few guys up there. I was talking to the general about this. He goes up there and sleeps in his office. He's not rich. He doesn't take big money, and there's only a handful of our people in Congress that will really toe the line, that actually care about the country more than themselves. So I just like to inspire everyone to do what we did over there and get involved, because you're obviously making a huge difference here. We watched the numbers that happened there, and we got to stop thinking about what the media is sensationalized. What someone says, like Trump will say one thing and they'll take it out. Maybe it's true. He's certainly not perfect. Made a lot of mistakes. I despise the fact that he was supporting the jab. But everyone makes mistakes. But I know that the country was a lot better under Trump's leadership than what we're seeing right now.
Thank you. I think we all agree that controlling the illegal immigration is a must. I mean, we are not pro-illegal immigration. That needs to be controlled somehow. I think what Musa is talking about is the union of families, the legal immigration. Some Yemenis have hard time getting their family member to here. It takes years. So that needs to be addressed, but or need to be fixed as well. But coming to becoming an American citizen, I think we are blessed to have the opportunity to be an American citizen in 5 years. Compared to our neighbors, remember, let's be honest, Saudi Arabia, you can be born from a Yemeni parents in Saudi Arabia, live there for 50 years, you will never be a Saudi citizen, right? That's, we have to be honest. Also UAE, that's the truth. So Qatar either. So it's very hard to be citizen in that country where you shared everything with, language, religion, culture, everything, but they have their own system of government that makes it very hard for a Yemeni to be a citizen in their country. Once you get here, you have all the opportunities that you can never find in any other country. You can be an American citizen in 5 years, just like me. I came when I was 18. In 1998, it took me 5 or 6 years to be an American citizen. So, and a lot of these immigrants, they came at later age and they struggled, but they had the opportunity to be an American citizen. So fixing the immigration system to be able to get the family members that are left there is something that we need to work on with the government and everyone. And that's what, but the illegal immigration, we are not going to support illegal immigration. Thank you. Any question right there? Yes.
In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, a reminder to myself, to you, General, and to everyone involved that all power at the end of the day comes from God, and we are just recipients of the favors that He's bestowed upon us. My question deals particularly with the Muslim community. There's a concern within the Muslim community right now, as the political arena has become more and more polarized, especially over the past 4 to 6 years, that Muslims in particular are being targeted, or they're being used as tools to win elections. And there is this worry within the Muslim community that there are no genuine alliances or strategic partnerships being built between Muslims and either party. So we've witnessed this with the Democrats, and this was a very harsh reality that we witnessed over the past 2 years, that we have gained very little but nominal victories from that party. What are our guarantees that the GOP or the conservative camp is not going to treat Muslims in the exact same way? And what are the guarantees that Muslims will have an actual seat at the table, not on the table, And what are our guarantees that this is a partnership that will last over elections to come, years to come, generations to come, an election built upon values, a partnership built upon values? Because at the end of the day, one election is disposable, but we are a growing political force in the country, and especially in Michigan. And I'm sure the GOP is aware of that at this point. So that's my question. How can we receive those guarantees?
Well, the first thing I would tell you is that there are no guarantees in life. And there's something that I was taught as a child by my father, and it's called the golden rule. My father taught me, and was a tough guy. He taught us all the golden rule: treat others like you'd like to be treated. Right? Treat others like you like to be treated. Don't treat somebody because they're this color or that culture or this faith. Treat them like you like to be treated. And I grew up in a neighborhood of all kinds of people. Okay? Now, I wouldn't say that we grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of Muslims at the time. There wasn't. But I grew up in a neighborhood where it was everybody. And we played a lot of sports. I used to, they call it latchkey. You know what a latchkey kid is? Kid that, he's got to go somewhere else because his parents aren't at home. So I would go to the boys club. I don't even know if you got a boys club. You got a boys club here in Hamtramck? Maybe not. So I used to go to the boys club because that's where I'd have to, I learned how to box or learn how to play something. I learned how to do something. But I learned about myself and I learned about the people around me. And I didn't look at somebody and go, oh, this guy, he's got this, got this tan face and he's got a beard. And he's a Muslim. And I never looked at things like that. Okay? So now I'm counseling. Okay, and I want you to take this, all of you. Don't put yourself into a box. If you put yourself into a box and say, the Muslims are being used, that means you're being used. Don't allow yourself to be used. Don't allow yourself to be used. To stand up, and I know, so I'm being a little bit harsh because I can tell you, life is not fair. When you have somebody that you love and they're dead in front of you, blown up into a couple of pieces, that's not fair. And you know their wife, you've held their child. That's not fair. It's not fair. So don't put yourself into a box. Do not allow others to define you. Leaders don't do that. Leaders in communities don't do that. Whether you're a sheikh, an imam, or a businessman, don't allow others to define whether you're good at what you do. You're good at what you do because that's how you are. That's who you are. And if you're a strong community, because you are, this community, and a wider community, but you're a strong community. It's like you want some of this? Come on. But you're going to have to come and talk to us about it. Find out what we're believe, what we feel. This business about families who are still in Yemen, as an example. You immigrate here, you establish a family, you establish your residency, you get your citizenship, and now you want to bring, mom, dad, uncles and aunts and grandmas and grandpa, you want to bring your entire family. Well, demand it. Don't beg for it, demand it. And you do it in this country, because you can't do it over in the Middle East. As Amir's talking about. You can't do that. You can't go and say, I want to be a Saudi citizen, or I want to be an Emirati, or I want to be, you'll never have it. It'll never happen. Here in this country, you get here, you do it the right way, and you can say, I want to be a Yemeni American. Okay? I'm going to respect who I am, but I'm also going to respect the fact that I am an American. Because the fabric of this country and the destiny, okay, your destiny, is not decided by me. Your destiny is decided by you. Like I said, I'm going to walk out that door here in a little bit, and I'm going to go back to where I came from, and I'm going to go to some other place, and I'm going to tell these other people, if you don't decide to do something in your community to make a difference, to get something to change, I don't know what this young man's going to do 5 years from now. Whether he's going to stay in this world or he's going to, go back and run a business or do whatever. Or any of you. I don't know what you're going to do. It's not up to me what the Muslim community is going to do in this country. And it's not up to you as an individual as to how to define the entire Muslim community. Because it is a powerful community. It's a very powerful community. And it gets back to the voting. Back to the voting. You vote. You definitely vote. And in this country, even though I don't believe that our voting system is fair, I don't. It kills me to say that. Because I was willing to give my life for that. But I don't believe that our system is fair. That needs to be fixed. And if you have that feeling, then go do something about it. This idea about getting involved in your community, I wasn't given that. That wasn't like sprinkled on me and like all of a sudden, I realized this is how our country was created. It was created so anybody in the world could come and show up and say, I want to be an American. I like what I see. And guess what? And I'm going to go live over there. I'm not going to go live over there. Because over there, they got better things for me. I mean, the ability to make decisions for your own self and your own family is such a powerful sense of who you are. And so, I completely understand what you're asking me. But I can't do anything about it. Only you can do something about it. I'm going to go back to the Republican Party and say we got to do more for the Muslim community. They're not going to listen to me. They will listen to you. They will listen to you. And this isn't about trying to try to come in here and go, I want y'all to become go register as Republicans. I'm with Alfie on the Republican Party. Because I'm like, I don't think about politics like that. I think about and I look at somebody as I saw this young man, and I say, I see a leader. And I think that him as a leader, I know how I feel and how I believe. And in the various conversations that I do have, that I'm privileged to be part of, believe me, I'm like arguing for everybody. Everybody. But anybody that wants to go after families and faith and wants to go after children, particularly children, that's my red line. It's my red line. I can't, and that's not from a political, ideological perspective, that ain't the Republican Party that's going after children. Okay? Now, are there dummies in some of the places that we have? Yeah, there sure are. But school boards, somebody mentioned school board, maybe it was you mentioned school boards. I mean, we've got to flip these school boards. I don't want a person who's on a school board trying to force pornography into I have grandchildren, into my 4-year-old, my 6-year-old. I don't want that. I don't want that. That's like, I'll take them out. I mean, homeschooling. Any of you do homeschooling at all? Or any of you have homeschooling? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, homeschooling is exploding in this country because our public school system is so broken. It's broken for a bunch of reasons, but it's really broken now that we've started to see what they're teaching our children. I mean, and it ain't the Republican Party that's up there going, teach them more pornography, force critical race theory. It ain't. And I look at it and I go, well, who's doing that? Well, it's these people. Okay, well, that's bad. So don't, that's not my destiny. That's not what I want. So I don't mean to be, over the top.
And I'm going to talk to you about trust. I'm going to ask you a question. So the general is a friend of mine. I've known him for quite a few years. And you got a man who y'all know, this guy was one of the leaders in the war on terror. He was one of the people who was fighting Islamic terror. Not Islam, Islamic terror. You asked whether or not he's learned anything. I knew the general in 2015. I would say he's learned some things. And I will tell you something, I've learned some things. I made a lot of mistakes. I was in DC on September 11th in 2001. And after that, on the ride home, I'll never forget the radio telling me about what was going on. And I'll never forget the news media. For years, I listened to them tell me, it was your fault. It was Islam. It was someone who's different from me. It was dividing us. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to find out how wrong I am. I made a number of friends who were Islamic, and I got to shake the hands of the mayor. And I've got to work with people of different faiths and different things. And I realized a few years back, in 2020, when they decided that I should be locked in my house, when I should be forced to take vaccines that may be against my faith, when they told me that I couldn't make decisions for myself again, I realized then how much that division was designed and put in place to create problems. Because when we're unified under freedom, that doesn't work. When we say no, I'm not going to wear a mask. No, I'm not going to hate someone because they go to a mosque instead of a church. When we say no, I'm not going to despise my neighbor. I'm not going to fight over this nonsense. We're powerful. We, the people, are powerful in this country. But we've been divided for years. We've been divided. We've been divided by fear. We've been divided by look, by how we live, by what we do. We've been divided. That's a tool that's being used against us. Now, I've admitted to you guys, I stood here, just like the general, for a guy like him to come to address the Islamic community. That's courage. I'm standing before you and I'm apologizing. I hope that you take that for courage, and I do so with humility. I want to define freedom. Okay, freedom is the right to live your life as you choose, as your conscience drives you to live. I fight for freedom. I don't like the Democrats. I despise the Republicans. I don't like any of these guys, all right? I like that guy. He's earned my trust. I like a few of those people over there that have earned my trust. Freedom means the right to live your life as you choose. Now, when it comes to our children, and make no mistake, here's me being honest, right? A lawyer being honest, right? Insert joke. Talk about the kids because it's something we can unify under. Does anybody in here think that it's okay to show porn to kids? No. I would hope not. If you do, I don't like you. I'm sorry. It's a tool, right? It's something we can agree on, we can talk about. We need to rebuild trust. That fear, that hate, that division that people have sown between Americans who believe that we should all have the right to raise our children the way my kids are 10 and 13. Hell will freeze over before I give them the world that we have today. It's not going to happen. When Bernadette, God bless her and Phil are amazing. When they told me about the outreach that they were doing, when they're reaching across, and they invited me to be involved with certain things, and they had my complete support. It was an honor. When I found out about this meeting, I shared it on my social media. So I've got I'm not like the general. I got 7 people that listen to me. But I shared on my social media how excited I was that I was going to get to come up and talk to the Islamic community. And that we could possibly talk about coming together not as Islam and Christian or is right and left, but as Americans, embracing freedom. You know what? Raise your kids how you want. My freedom You can't impugn my freedom to raise my kids how I want. You can't impugn my freedom to believe how I want. That's the First Amendment. When I posted that, do you know what I'm ashamed to say? I got some blowback from the Patriot community, because most of my followers are Patriots. So when you ask about that, yeah, we got problems. There's no question about it. We aren't going to fix it unless we do this. And there's going to have to be give and take on both sides, because for years, we've all been told they're evil. And it's both ways, right? The big ugly white lawyer, he's evil too. Depends on where you're sitting, right? In one seat, I'm the bad guy, and another you are. If I can't come up and find the courage to say this to you guys, how are we going to fix this? And the simple answer is we aren't. The Democrats and the Republicans are all trash. I don't like any of them. I got about 4 or 5 guys in DC that I'd waste my time picking up the phone to talk to. There are some people that are fighting. The general, his team, there's a bunch of us out there. A bunch of people that are fighting. And what we're fighting for is not Islam, it's not Christianity by itself. It's not the right to believe. It's all the things that are freedom, that are America. That's what we're fighting for. And I would ask, and I have no, you owe me nothing, right? Why do you care what I ask? Why do you care what some lawyer from Ohio asks? You don't. But I'm going to ask anyways, because I'm a lawyer and I have no shame. I would ask that when we leave here, we consider, are we okay with how things are? Who's going to be the bigger man? Who's going to stand up and say, maybe, just maybe, one of us has to put the hand out. And if it gets slapped, it needs to be put back out. Because we have to live together. We have 320 million Americans that don't look alike, that don't believe alike, that don't act alike. And we have 2 options. We can watch our country continue to burn, or we can start to respect each other and respect the fact that we may live and believe differently, but we all come together under freedom. Legally, we can only protect freedom. That's all we can do. So I pray that we fight it. I pray to Allah, I pray to the God of Abraham, I pray to my God, Jesus Christ. I pray that we all may receive the wisdom that we need from our individual faiths, from our individual lives, and that we can come together as men who believe in freedom. Nothing more, nothing less. From there, I will make my commitment. I've told Pastor Bernadette, I have no authority. I'm not big. I'm not connected. I'm a nobody from a little town. My town has 12,000 people, so you guys are a huge city to me. You're about an hour and a half from me. For what my platform is and for what I can do, I would commit to come to this community any day, for you to show me what I need to learn, and for me to call General Flynn, for me to call and to talk to the people that I can call and talk to, and tell them what I've seen, and to try and rebuild. This is me putting my hand out in whatever way I can, because there are no promises. And I don't actually believe that you would be smart to just make a deal with the Republicans or just make a deal with the Democrats. You need to make a deal with the people. And it needs to start with your people. And as General said, it starts with you taking control of your community, your families, and who you are, and saying, listen, no more porn in my schools, no more telling me what I'm going to do with my kids, no more telling me I can't do this, I can't do that. We are a nation of freedom, founded on, based on, and all about that. We will stand together for that, and I think that we need to stand arm in arm as far as we can. I don't have to agree with you on anything else. If you'll stand next to me with freedom, I'll stand with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. So with that, I